On a quiet April morning in 1863, the United States of America woke up to a nightmare that would change the world forever. But it wasn't the nightmare history remembers, it was worse. The sky over Pennsylvania was stained with gunpowder, the air heavy with smoke, and the ground trembling beneath thousands of marching boots. But in this timeline, something impossible happened, something that would break the spine of the Union. The Confederacy didn't just survive, it won. The turning point wasn't Gettysburg, it was something far more devastating. A bold Confederate strategy, known in our timeline only as a desperate idea, barely considered, becomes reality here. Instead of charging blindly into Union fire, General Robert E. Lee executes a maneuver so unpredictable, so ruthless, that historians in this alternate timeline would describe it as America's darkest miracle. Under the cover of thick fog rolling across the hills of Pennsylvania, Confederate units slip silently around the Union flank, severing their supply lines, capturing their artillery, and striking from behind like a ghost army rising from the trees. By the time the sun breaks through the fog, the Union Army is surrounded. Panic spreads, lines collapse, commands fall apart. Within hours, the largest Union force ever assembled on American soil is shattered. 40,000 men surrender in what newspapers will soon call the Pennsylvania disaster. And just like that, Lincoln's dream of a united America begins to die. In Washington, fear takes control. Congress erupts into chaos. Protests explode in northern cities, demanding peace at any cost. The Union is bleeding, exhausted, divided, and for the first time, the idea of losing doesn't feel impossible, it feels inevitable. Sensing weakness, Britain and France, both secretly sympathetic to the Confederacy, step out of the shadows. They recognize the Confederate States of America as a legitimate nation. European ships begin arriving in southern ports with weapons, medicine, and gold. With international support flowing like a river, the South becomes untouchable. Lincoln, cornered and desperate, is forced to sign the Treaty of Richmond. The United States is split permanently in two. In 1864, two nations stare across a newly drawn border, the United States of America in the north and the Confederate States of America in the south. But history doesn't end at the signing of a document, it only begins. The Confederacy, victorious but scarred, enters a future it is completely unprepared to control. Slavery, preserved by blood, becomes the foundation of a Southern empire. Farms grow, cotton exports explode, and money pours in. But beneath the surface lies a moral rot that will one day crack the nation open. The North, meanwhile, is angry, humiliated, and hungry for redemption. The idea of American greatness, shattered by defeat, transforms into something colder, sharper, and more determined. Factories expand, new technologies arise, immigration surges, and soon the United States becomes a powerhouse built not on unity, but on vengeance. But the Confederacy has its own problems, big ones. European nations, thrilled to see America divided, take advantage of the South's growing dependence. British advisors influence Southern politics. French investors seize control of trade routes. The Confederacy becomes rich, but not free. By the 1880s, enslaved African Americans begin organizing one of the largest underground resistance movements in world history. Secret leaders spread coded messages through churches, rail lines, and plantations. Whispered promises travel across the South. One day, the chains will break. The North hears these whispers, and it watches. For decades, the two Americas glare at each other like wounded wolves, each waiting for the other to make the first move. Border skirmishes become common. Diplomats threaten war over railroad routes, trade tariffs, even river access. Then comes the spark. In 1894, Confederate soldiers gunned down a group of fleeing enslaved families near the border. When news reaches the North, outrage rips through the country like a firestorm. President Harrison declares the act a crime against humanity. Northern newspapers demand action, and the South refuses to apologize. The world holds its breath. Two Americas, two ideologies, two armies marching towards destiny. In 1896, the Second American War erupts. But this time, the North is stronger. Factories thunder like iron hearts. Thousands of immigrants join the war effort. The U.S. Navy blockades southern ports, suffocating Confederate trade. Europe refuses to intervene, unwilling to fight another industrial giant. By 1898, Confederate cities burn. Richmond collapses. Atlanta falls. Slave uprisings erupt everywhere. The Confederacy, victorious in 1863, dies in 1898, not with glory, but with fire. The United States reunites the continent, but something is different, something darker. For decades, hatred had poisoned both nations. The wounds from 1863 never truly healed. Reconstruction becomes brutal, harsher than anything in our timeline. The South is treated not as a region of citizens, but as a defeated empire. African Americans fight for survival in a fractured land. White Southerners cling to the ghosts of their lost nation. Northern politicians rewrite history to justify vengeance. And the world outside feels the shockwave. Without a strong, united America in the 1800s, the global balance of power shifts. Europe grows stronger. Colonial empires last longer. World War I ends differently. World War II begins differently. Without a unified America to lead the 20th century, the world becomes unpredictable, unstable, dangerous. All because of one foggy morning in 1863. All because the Confederacy won a single battle. So, the question remains, if the South had won the Civil War, would the world today be safer or far, far darker?